Hey, curious minds. In a world full of secrets and shadows, every question leads to another mystery. Let's explore what lies beneath the surface. Today, we're diving into, well, one of the most enduring enigmas out there, the Bermuda Triangle, that legendary patch of the Atlantic, between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. It's got all these evocative names, too, like the Devil's Triangle, Limbo of the Lost. Really sets a mood. And for decades, it's just captured our imagination with these stories, these tales of ships and planes just vanishing. Poof, gone.
That's right. And for this deep dive, we've gathered, well, quite a range of stuff, articles, YouTube transcripts, you name it. We're trying to get a real handle on the reality behind the triangle's, let's say, formidable reputation. Our goal, really, is to navigate through all these claimed paranormal events, the documented disappearances, and really weigh the evidence, try to separate, fact from fiction, or at least plausible explanations from just wild guessing.
And it's not like this is a new thing, is it? This fascination goes way back. I mean, even Christopher Columbus, on his first trip over, apparently wrote about weird stuff happening in this area.
Oh, yeah? Like what?
Well, he noted seeing a, quote, great flame of fire crashing into the sea. Probably a meteor, right?
Sure, makes sense.
But then, weeks later, a strange light just appeared on the horizon. And get this, his log mentions his compass readings going haywire, fluctuating all over the place.
Huh. That is weird. A pretty unsettling welcome to the Americas, I guess.
You could say that.
Yeah, I mean, even in those really early stories, you kind of see the seeds of the mystery starting to form, don't you? These unusual things happening that back then they just couldn't easily explain.
Yeah.
But it was really the 20th century when the whole idea of the Bermuda Triangle as this, zone of disappearances really took hold.
Right, so the name itself, Bermuda Triangle, it's not ancient sailors' lore or anything. Where did that actually come from?
No, it's much more recent. It mostly comes down to a guy named Vincent Gaddis. He wrote an article back in 1964 for Argosy magazine called The Deadly Bermuda Triangle. And in it, he basically listed a whole bunch of shipwrecks and plane crashes in that area over the previous 100 years or so. And he asked the big question, what makes this place so destructive?
Okay, so Gaddis coins the term, and that article must have hit a nerve because just 10 years later, Charles Berlitz comes along, and his book, The Bermuda Triangle, just explodes, right? Sold something like 20 million copies. What was his angle?
Well, Berlitz really pushed it into the paranormal. He suggested things like electromagnetic disturbances,
Yeah.
maybe causing ships and planes to just disintegrate or vanish somehow. And later, he even tied it into the whole lost city of Atlantis idea.
Atlantis? Really?
Yeah, suggesting maybe some kind of leftover Atlantean tech like crystal energy or something was still active down there causing all the problems.
Wow, Atlantis. That's definitely a captivating theory. Linking this, mythical high-tech civilization under the sea to the Bermuda Triangle mystery. And you mentioned those other names earlier, Devil's Triangle, Hoodoo Sea. They definitely add to the feeling of danger, the unknown.
Exactly. Those names really reflect how people started seeing the area, like it was inherently cursed or just dangerous in a supernatural way. But, to really get why this legend sticks around, we need to look at some of the specific incidents people point to.
Yeah, and there are some truly chilling stories. Let's start with Flight 19. That's probably the most famous one. 5 Navy Avenger torpedo bombers, 14 airmen, took off from Fort Lauderdale, December 1945. Supposed to be a routine training flight. What went wrong?
Well, the plan was some practice bombing runs, flying a triangular route out over the ocean, standard stuff. But about an hour and a half in, the flight leader, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, radios in saying his compasses are acting up, both of them. And somehow, even though they'd flown the first leg over the Bahamas correctly, he gets convinced they're actually over the Florida Keys, way south of where they should be.
That seems odd. I mean, these were experienced Navy guys. They had instruments. How do you get that lost? Didn't someone else try to help them? Another pilot on the radio?
Yeah, Lieutenant Robert Cox. He picked up their transmissions and basically told Taylor, look, if you're sure you're over the Keys, fly north towards Miami.
But Taylor didn't buy it.
Apparently not. The whole situation seems almost impossible, Proper training, equipment, making that kind of huge navigational blunder is hard to imagine. But Taylor just kept insisting his compasses were shot and that he knew where they were, even though it didn't make sense. The radio signals got fainter and fainter, and eventually they were talking about ditching in the ocean because they were running out of fuel. The very last transmissions were apparently just eerie static.
And it gets worse, doesn't it? Because they send out a rescue plane.
Right. A PBM Mariner flying boat with 13 guys on board took off to search for Flight 19, and it vanished too, just disappeared shortly after takeoff. The thinking is it probably exploded in midair.
So one afternoon, 6 planes, 27 men, Gone, without a trace.
Exactly. And they searched like crazy. Huge area. Found nothing. No debris, no oil slicks, nothing from the Avengers or the Mariner. The official Navy report famously said it was like they'd flown to Mars. That total lack of evidence, that's what really cemented the mystery.
Were there questions about L.T. Taylor himself? I seem to remember reading something about his state of mind that day.
There was some talk, yeah. Some reports suggested he showed up late for the briefing, maybe even asked to be taken off the flight. Whether that actually played a role in what happened, well, who knows? It's just more speculation, really.
Still, Flight 19 is a cornerstone of the legend, but it's not the only big one. What about the USS Cyclops back in 1918?
Ah, yeah, the Cyclops. That's another major case. Huge ship. This thing was over 500 feet long. A Navy collier, basically a cargo ship. It had over 300 people on board, plus like 10,000 tons of manganese ore. Heavy stuff. It was sailing from Barbados up towards the Chesapeake Bay in March 1918, and it just vanished.
It vanished. A ship that big. Did it send an SOS?
Nope. That's one of the really weird things. It had radio equipment, but not a single distress call was ever received. And just like Flight 19, massive searches turned up absolutely nothing. No wreckage, no lifeboats, zip. Even President Woodrow Wilson weighed in, saying something like, "Only God and the sea know what happened to the great ship."
Wow. That's heavy. And wasn't there something about its sister ships, too?
Yeah, that's another layer. In 1941, two of its sister ships, the Proteus and the Nereus, also disappeared without a trace. On pretty much the same route, also carrying heavy ore bauxite, in their case.
Okay, that does make you wonder, doesn't it? Maybe it wasn't something supernatural, but like a design flaw.
That's definitely one theory. These were older ships, designed originally for coal. Maybe carrying dense ores like manganese or bauxite put unusual stress on their structure. Some researchers think maybe the corrosive nature of carrying coal for years weakened the hulls, making them prone to breaking up suddenly in rough seas, especially when loaded down like that.
That actually sounds plausible. Less exciting than Atlantis, but maybe more realistic. But still, the list of incidents tied to the triangle is pretty long, right? Ships, planes, different eras.
Oh, absolutely. You've got famous historical ones like the Mary Celeste in 1872 found sailing on its own, completely empty but undamaged. Weird. Then you have aircraft like an Army C-45 Superfort disappearing off Bermuda in 47. And those two British airliners, the Star Tiger and the Star Ariel, both vanished in the late 40s, gone with everyone on board.
Right, I remember those 2 to the 5 planes, wasn't it?
Yep. Then there's the SS Marine Sulphur Queen, a tanker, gone in 63. The Witchcraft, a cabin cruiser, vanished just a mile off Miami in 67 after reporting hitting something. And even much more recently, remember those two teenagers, 14-year-old boys, out fishing in 2015?
Oh, that was awful. Their boat turned up later, didn't it?
Yeah, found drifting off Bermuda about a year later.
Mm-hmm.
But the boys, never found. Just heartbreaking.
It really is. It's just tragedy after tragedy. And when you see them all listed like that, concentrated in one area, you can kind of see how people start looking for, well, weirder explanations.
Exactly. Once the legend got going, it just opened the floodgates for all sorts of paranormal theories, conspiracy ideas, anything to try and explain the unexplainable.
Okay, let's touch on some of those. We mentioned aliens, Atlantis. What else is out there in the stranger corners of the internet?
Oh, you name it. Alien abduction is a classic, obviously.
Right.
Maybe UFOs zapping ships out of existence or grabbing them for study. The Atlantis theory, with its crystal power sources causing malfunctions, that's a big one, thanks to Berlitz. Then you get into sea monsters, time warps, sucking vessels into the past or future, patches of, like, reverse gravity.
Reverse gravity. Okay, that's a new one on me.
Yeah, or cosmic tractor beams, pulling ships into space. Even wormholes or portals to other dimensions. The imagination really runs wild.
Cosmic tractor beams. Sounds like something out of Star Trek.
Yeah.
And that Atlantis thing keeps popping up. Weren't there those, like, underwater walls found off Bimini? People thought that was Atlantis?
Yeah, the Bimini Road. Berlitz pointed to that as proof. But geologists have studied it pretty extensively. The consensus now is that it's a natural formation. It's called beach rock, basically. An old shoreline that got submerged and hardened over time. Looks kind of like paving stones, but it's natural.
Ah, okay. So, scratch Atlantis off the list, maybe. But there are some personal accounts that sound really strange, aren't there? Like that pilot, Bruce Gernon, and the electronic fog.
Gernon's story from 1970 is definitely one of the most cited personal experiences. It's pretty wild. He claims he flew into this weird cloud formation, this electronic fog near the Bahamas. He actually said he encountered it twice, decades apart. But on that first flight, he said something really bizarre happened with time. He claimed he flew 100 miles in just over 3 minutes.
3 minutes? That's impossibly fast for his plane.
Exactly. Should have taken much, much longer. He describes seeing this like tunnel forming around his plane, rotating. Said his compass spun like crazy, instruments went haywire. He even speculated he'd somehow seen the fabric of time.
Whoa, okay, that's intense. What do people make of that?
Well, it's anecdotal, obviously. But people who believe in, say, ancient astronaut theories, they sometimes point to stories like Gurnon's. They suggest maybe the triangle is some kind of electromagnetic hotspot, maybe with portals or vortexes that UFOs use to travel through space or time, or even between dimensions.
So, connecting these really unusual personal experiences to these grander theories about aliens or other dimensions, it definitely adds to the mystique. Okay, but let's pivot now. Let's talk about the skeptical view, the scientific explanations. What are the more rational reasons proposed for all this?
Right, and there are quite a few based more on, evidence and known phenomena. Probably the biggest factor is just bad weather. The Bermuda Triangle is notorious for it. You get hurricanes, tropical storms, sudden violent squalls that can pop up with little warning. The Gulf Stream runs through there too, which creates really complex, fast-changing weather conditions.
That makes sense. Storms can sink ships and down planes anywhere, and it's a busy area too, isn't it? Lots of traffic.
Absolutely. It's a major shipping route. Lots of air traffic between Florida, the Caribbean, South America. So statistically speaking, you just expect more accidents to happen there simply because there are more ships and planes in the area. Doesn't necessarily mean the rate of accidents is higher than anywhere else with similar traffic.
And human error has to play a part too, right? Navigation mistakes, poor judgment.
For sure. That happens everywhere. Plus, there's that specific navigational issue in the triangle, the compass variation.
Ah, right. You mentioned Columbus's compass acting weird, but there's a known reason for that in the triangle.
Yes. It's one of the few places on Earth where true north, the direction to the geographic North Pole, and magnetic north, where your compass needle points line up pretty closely. Normally, sailors and pilots have to adjust their compass readings to account for the difference, called magnetic declination. But in the triangle, that declination is almost zero. So if you're used to making that adjustment and you don't realize you don't need to here, well, you could easily navigate yourself way off course without realizing it.
That sounds like a recipe for getting lost, especially back before GPS. What about other natural hazards? People talk about rogue waves.
Rogue waves are definitely a real danger at sea. These are massive, unexpected waves that can appear out of nowhere and swamp even large ships. Entirely possible they've caused some losses. There was also that theory about methane gas eruptions from the seabed.
Oh yeah, the idea that bubbles could suddenly reduce the water density and a ship could just sink like a stone.
Exactly. It sounds plausible, but further research, like a study by scientists in Norway looking at similar seabed features, kind of cast doubt on it being a major cause of shipwrecks, especially in the triangle. They didn't really find a strong connection.
Okay, so we've got weather, traffic volume, human error, compass issues, maybe rogue waves. Quite a list of potential non-spooky causes. And what do the official organizations say, like the Coast Guard or insurance companies? Do they consider it extra dangerous?
Generally, no. The U.S. Coast Guard, Lloyd's of London, the big marine insurers, they don't officially recognize the Bermuda Triangle as being exceptionally hazardous compared to other parts of the ocean. They tend to state that most losses in the area can be explained by known physical causes, things that happen everywhere. Skeptics also make the point that the legend itself creates a kind of confirmation bias. Meaning, because the area already has this reputation, any ship or plane that goes missing there automatically gets labeled a Bermuda Triangle mystery, even if the cause might be perfectly ordinary or just currently unknown. The label comes first. And some analyses suggest the actual number of disappearances isn't statistically unusual for an area that size with that much traffic. It just feels like more because of the legend.
It does make you wonder, though, why the more mysterious explanations are often so much more appealing than the logical ones.
That's a really interesting psychological question. Yeah. And there was actually a study from Princeton University that looked into something related. They found a potential link between feeling socially excluded, like feeling pushed out or disconnected from others, and being more likely to believe in conspiracy theories.
Really? How does that work?
The idea is that if people feel marginalized, they might unconsciously seek out explanations for events that give them a sense of special knowledge or meaning, something outside the mainstream understanding. And the study specifically found a correlation between those feelings of exclusion and endorsing beliefs about paranormal stuff happening in the Bermuda Triangle.
Huh. That's fascinating. So feeling left out might make someone more open to believing in, say, aliens or time warps in the triangle as a
Yeah.
way to make sense of things or feel part of a group that does understand.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
And the research suggested it could even become a bit of a cycle. Embracing those beliefs might lead to further isolation from the mainstream, which could then reinforce the belief and maybe lead people to find communities specifically built around those fringe ideas.
Okay, so we've got these two sides pretty clearly laid out. On one hand, the undeniably compelling stories, the disappearances without trace, fueling all kinds of theories, aliens, Atlantis, weird fog.
Right, stuff of legend.
And on the other hand, a whole host of rational scientific possibilities. Terrible weather, simple human mistakes, navigational quirks, high traffic, maybe even rogue waves.
Exactly. And while, many, maybe even most of the incidents probably do have conventional explanations, even if we don't know them for sure, the fact is, some cases do remain genuinely puzzling. The complete lack of wreckage for Flight 19, for example. It's that lingering unknown that keeps the mystery alive, keeps people talking about it.
So even after looking at all the evidence, all the theories, the Bermuda Triangle still manages to hold on to some of its secrets, doesn't it? It really seems some answers only raise more questions. Until then, stay curious.